What's going on, everyone? I'm here with
Connor.
Question of the day. What are some of the issues and kind of disadvantages of being a woman in 2021? What do you think?
Issues and disadvantages of being a woman. Well, okay, I'm not exactly an expert in this topic.
Right, it's fine.
But, I feel like even though a lot of progress has been made towards deconstructing the worst excesses of patriarchy and, harmful stereotypes about women, I still feel they're very present. I still feel like there's a very strong expectation that women are supposed to be, submissive to men especially, and not just in all facets of life. Like, you see it with a lot of women feeling they have to constantly apologize or having to preface things with, this is a stupid question, but, this is usually, this is a big thing in academia, which is, I go here, so that's what I'm thinking about. Obviously, there are still a lot of, legal biases against women. Around the world, obviously, it's a lot worse in certain places. But here, I just feel like there's still such entrenched ideas about women being inferior to men, or even women only being defined in opposition to men as, the inferior. I feel like that's still very present in the minds of a lot of people.
With that being said, do you still think that, the gender pay gap is still a very pressing issue in the current landscape right now?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like it's been debunked, or kind of what's your take on it, do you think?
I feel like the pop version of this is very it's not really well discussed on both sides, but I do feel like there's a tendency to expect, within job, if you have two employees, man A, woman A, a lot of employers think they can pay woman A a little less because they think she won't speak up as much, or, won't discuss her pay with other people and will just accept it. And I do feel like, in general, men do have more access to more high-paying positions, more powerful positions than women do.
What steps do you think that we can take to kind of tear down the patriarchy if you believe that patriarchy is strong and as kind of active as it is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, this is definitely a cop-out answer. I don't think this answer is sufficient at all. But I do think just, raising awareness. Because, a lot of people propagate these ideas and believe them, sometimes through no thought of their own. They're just so ingrained in everything they do that they don't stop to examine it. So just, raising awareness for people to, when they're thinking things, to stop and think, why am I thinking this? Where does this come from? Yeah, just conscious efforts to really examine things. Obviously, more. It would obviously be good to have more women in positions of power, but you really run the risk when you say something like that of just getting, okay, well, yeah, we'll put a few token women in these positions and they'll just reproduce the same exact thing. But now, hey, it's a woman doing it instead of a man.
What would you say are some disadvantages with men in the same space? What are hard-hitting issues for men in the space? Do you think men, some of their issues kind of go by the wayside, or do you feel like at the current state, do you think women, their issues need to be addressed first?
I don't think either issues need to be addressed first, because I really think in addressing one, you really address the other. I feel like a lot of the issues stem from these, conceptions of masculinity and femininity. And, toxic masculinity as a concept has kind of become, nothing. It's been so overused.
Yeah, taboo.
Yeah, but there really is, men are expected not to be emotional and not to speak out of things, and you see that with the reason that men commit suicide at higher rates. Even though women attempt it at higher rates, which is also an issue. But there's this conception that men have to be a certain way, and that way really doesn't allow them many opportunities to express themselves, and that leads to a lot of emotional turmoil. So I really don't think it's an either-or issue. I really think both should be and can be addressed.
I guess the advantage, or there's growing advantages. I think the feminist move's definitely evolved a lot in the 21st century. So, there's a lot. I think that we're taking a lot, as a society, taking a lot more steps towards equality between men and women. But it's still not 100% there. So I'd say, that's mainly the disadvantage. It's an interesting question, because the other day I saw, it was freezing cold, right? All the guys are going out, they're wearing big jackets, and the girls, they're wearing nothing. It's 40 degrees out.
Why is that? Do you think it's for their own self-approval, or do you think it's for male approval?
So that's what I was asking myself, and I guess that kind of speaks to the question that you're asking. like, where's the equality there? You know, they can't even stay warm because they're freezing themselves to death.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the question is, are they freezing themselves for themselves, or are they freezing themselves to impress guys, or is it just like a standard now in society?
Do you think that it's going to continue to grow at this level, or do you think it'll kind of stagnate? Or
in the U.S., yeah, and I think eventually it will spread. Because if you look at other countries, it's not the same. You know,
So it's just, you're really saying it's a Western issue, really, here in the West?
Well, it's an issue everywhere. I think it's a lot worse in other places, but they're not taking steps to correct it. And I think Western civilization is.
Okay.
So, like, for example, like if you look at Mexico, you know, I mean, there's a lot more gender inequality there than there is here.
Advantages and disadvantages?
Correct.
I feel like there's still a lot of disadvantages. At this point, the struggles that women go through is being broadcasted more, and it's a lot more well known, but that doesn't mean that those issues have been eradicated.
What issues do you feel like haven't been eradicated at the moment? Like, just maybe some examples that you think about?
I mean, like, the way we're depicted in media is terrible. The way we're just talked about in general. Sexual assault is still prevalent. Sexism is prevalent at, like, every level in terms of, like education, like academic research, spaces we're in. So, like, I was a chemistry major for 3 years, and being a STEM major as a woman is very isolating. Like, there are so many men in that field, and it's becoming more, it's an emerging field for women, so there's a lot more women in it, but it's still very male dominated, and I felt like I had to prove my worth every time I was there. Like, I think that's something is, we constantly have to prove ourselves, and we constantly have to just, like, show that we're capable of doing things, because the bare minimum is, like, we're still just treated as if we can't do anything.
I guess sort of like a prop almost. You feel like maybe like a puppet.
We're very dehumanized and objectified.
Yeah.
We're just treated as, props is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Like a stage piece almost.
Yeah, like we're here to serve you. And we're here in the background, but we're never individuals. We're never people with, like, complex identities. Like, when it comes down to it, we're still, like, we're just women. Like, that's how people see us.
What would some advantages do you think of being a woman, just in the current space, in the current, like, fabric of society would be in your estimation?
Honestly, I feel the best advantage of being a woman is being able to be a woman with other women. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but
I know, like, completely.
The sense of, like, community, and not to sound cheesy, but, like, sisterhood and just family I feel with other women, and the sense of comfort I get with them is something I don't think I could ever reach with, like, a group of men.
Advantages and disadvantages of being a female in 2021, do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm non-binary.
Okay.
So, I'm femme, non-binary, but I can still answer it from a feminized perspective, yeah?
Right.
I would say it's hard for me to think about advantages. Perhaps privileges because I'm white, but that's not because I'm female. But disadvantages would definitely be, like, making less money than people who are men. Off the top of my head, higher rates of domestic violence, more incidents that we will be sexually assaulted. So those sorts of things just off the top of my head.
Okay. Is there any way do you think we can close the gap at some point, or do you kind of feel like we have a long way to go in that area?
Oh boy. I think that there are some ways that we've progressed as a society, and there are some ways that we have just stayed the same and shifted stuff,
Right.
from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some ways that we've gone backward. So I personally think there's a lot of stuff that needs to burn down before we can really address what's happening. And I just think that's how society works. That's not like I want to burn things down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Do you think there's anything that, like, incentivizes those kind of acts, like those, like when it comes to sexual assault and violence towards women and violence towards the trans community? What exactly do you think?
Going deep here, I like this. I think that we live in a time where our emotions, like it or not, our emotional abilities are developing. We're in an evolution in emotional development, but it's going to take a couple of 100 years. And I think that we're working with, like, our brains and projecting on each other a lot, right? And so the people who are the most vulnerable because of the structures of capitalism and fascism that we live under, the people who are the most vulnerable are going to stand to lose the most from it. But we all lose, and we're all kind of going through something.